Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. I wanted to talk about something that a lot of people will be drawn into when they get into art, and that's line art. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to line art because it's used in a lot of styles. But really, what is line art? Why is line art there in the first place? That's something that I would like to talk about here. Well, the obvious answer is, well, line art distinguishes objects. But where is it coming from? And the answer is pretty simple. Look around you. Is there any line art in reality? There's no such thing. So why did we as artists come to terms with using lines? It has to do with the fact that in reality, a lot of things can be separated by values. So, for instance, if you have a black headphones on your white table, you'll probably see the black headphones pretty apparently. There is that value difference, or if you want another term, there's a brightness difference. The fact that there are different brightnesses distinguishes each other from each other. Now we can paint that as is, so dark paint to paint the headphones and then just have a white table. However, what's the easier plan to do this? And of course, you'll probably know by now, it's line art. Line art, in many cases, is the first step. Everyone has to have a sketch. We don't have this ability to magically just paint perfect values onto a blank canvas within 5 minutes. But we can distinguish the objects very easily if we just use lines. To paint every value properly is probably going to take quite a bit longer than, let's say, just doing a quick line art sketch. But then this begs the question, why are there styles that have finalized pieces using line art? And it's quite simple. Line art is the easiest way to distinguish objects from each other, as we've established. So when it comes to something like cartoons, to be able to distinguish the characters no matter what colors they are is very useful because the background tends to be very elaborate. Line art is also much easier to replicate for animation than, let's say, painting each frame. There's a reason why studios like Studio Ghibli are gonna keep the backgrounds very complex, but the characters simple. It's not the fact that the character artists can't draw or paint very well, it's the fact that they have to simplify in order to create something in motion over thousands and thousands of frames. I want to get back to the point where I said, no matter what colors the character is, they will still be distinguishable. Now, this is actually a huge trap for a lot of people. When you have line art, a character, no matter what colors you put down, will stand out because the lines are distinguishing the subject. Now, there has been a lot of people over the years on forums where they say, I can't transfer my sketch to paintings. For some reason, it's not working. I don't know what's going on. 99% of the cases, the reason why that happens is because their sketch is technically using line art, and the line art is distinguishing things that their paintings aren't. That point can change your art. Line art is part of the deal unless you practice and work out of it. Remember, line art is simply a placeholder for paintings unless your style uses line art. So by removing the foundation, then your subjects will no longer look the same. So what I mean by this is, I've established in the past that brightness, or values rather, are the most important factors when it comes to distinguishing objects. So there's a very, very common trap where people paint their characters in a certain value, but the background has the same value. And once they take out the line art, it doesn't look right. The meeting edges between the character and the background is technically a line. However, if you're not able to distinguish that with value, then there's no way of telling whether the character is in the background or, just somewhere floating in space. A lot of cases, people who are sketching, the sketch is part of the deal. The sketch, the line art, makes it work. And if you take that, all bets are off. Now, with that in mind, the idea that line art is part of the deal, there's one more thing I want to mention regarding this. Line art is actually doing a function that most people don't realize. It unifies the colors together. What I mean by this is, in your piece, black line art being spread across the page is always going to work. Your composition is balanced around the fact that there are black lines across the canvas. And in previous videos, I also talked about composition weight. Black lines are weights. Make no mistake about it. And by the sheer nature of it, you're able to spread that black around, and that allows the composition to work. Once you take that away, again, all bets are off. Your composition will now be judged on the colors that you chose, which means that the black is no longer a balancing function. This is actually the reason why, if you're looking into doing lineless art, you have to get into the habit of seeing the painting without the line art. Now, it might take a lot of practice to see what works. Generally speaking, one way I like to advise people is to paint over the lines rather than under the lines. When you're painting under the lines, you're creating a painting with the line art as a compositional tool. When you're painting over the lines, then you will naturally balance the artwork based off of missing line art. Now, of course, that's not to say you can't make a style that will be using line art in this final piece. That's completely fine. Just understand that in that case, you're probably going to use line art as part of the deal. You don't want to have the painting suffer because of the line art carrying it. Art is a product of many decisions, and line art is part of the decision. The colors are part of the decision. So they have to meld well together. If they don't, then it becomes sort of like a portion painting. You're having parts of a painting together, but they're not melding together. And it becomes quite noticeable. Generally speaking, I notice more people get used to line art than getting used to painting. So if you're going to learn something, I would suggest learning the painting side first. Because if you get your painting right, adding a bit of line art wouldn't do much harm. But if you do it in reverse, it's very easy to make a painting that doesn't look good. And of course, for the people who really, really want to have line art in their style, so anime artists, cartoonists, and such, I think it's important to learn painting without lines anyways, because, again, the lines will only enhance your painting. You might notice a lot of the best cartoons and anime. Their color choices are very advanced and it looks very appealing, and that's partly due to their understanding of color and light, and they don't rely on line art to save them. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, feel free to comment down below and tell me if there's anything that's not working for you and that if you need help for anything. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.